Ladies and gentlemen, coming to you from the beautiful Grand Forks Pavilion in North Dakota. This is All Out Destruction Tour Sunday Tour. Last week we got a chance to see these drivers freestyle, but this week we're going to be seeing what they can do on the racetrack. As we take a look from last week at the point standings, Amos Moses in first place with 24 points, followed by Time Flies, Engine 85, Gravedigger the Legend, Wolfpack, Immortal, Avenger looking to get back on track this week with his racing. He's known to be such a great racer. We'll see if he's got what it takes to win tonight. Then an Escalade, Axe, and then me in Bigfoot wrapping out your top 10. But before we can take to the racetrack, we gotta meet our drivers. Driving Avenger tonight, it's Phoenix. In an Escalade, we got Bryce Bowe. Making his debut tonight, Gravedigger driven by Chicken. Chillin' Villain with Cryowolf at the helm there. Rod Ryan with Rod Ryan, not the real Rod Ryan. Dom and Immortal, that's why they call me Immortal Dom. There I am in that beautiful Bigfoot truck. Then we got Thomas in Wolf's Head. Little do our current points leader in Amos Moses. And then in that Gravedigger the Legend truck, we got Electric Sins, who won racing last week. Let's see if he's got what it takes to make a repeat and take racing 2 weeks in a row. I'm your host, E.G. Lately, bringing you all the action as the drivers get ready to go back. We're going to start right off with me in a race against Cryowolf in Chillin' Villain. I'm obviously driving the Bigfoot Power Wheels in honor of the passing of Dan Runty. So let's see if I have what it takes to take out Cryowolf. As we have this very interesting track here tonight. So far, the race looks pretty even. Both trucks even over the halfway point. Who's going to pull it out? Into the final stretch. What a close finish. Now, I'll be honest, Cryowolf gave me everything I can handle and then some, but unfortunately for him, if you look right here, he caught a 5-second penalty from not hitting the jump square. You got to make sure at least both tires are at least touching white if you're going to go to that far end of the jump. We're going to keep an eye on that and see if any other drivers have issues with that tonight. As we get ready for our next race, we got Papa John and Axe versus the Rod Ryan Show with Rod Ryan. Again, not the real Rod Ryan. I'm not trying to get sued. I'm pretty excited to see what these guys have in store for us here. As we get ready for race number 2, Bigfoot moving on. I'm excited to get to round 2. It's not something that happens very often. As these racers are getting started here, Rod Ryan goes out to a pretty commanding lead over Axe, who's having all sorts of trouble on this track tonight. Again, this track is very treacherous, especially you start off in them berms. And there's Rod Ryan taking the victory. As long as he didn't get any penalties, I think he's going to be moving on. And yes, it looks like the Rod Ryan Show is going to be moving on. So Rod Ryan moving on to the next round. As we get a first look at Critical Error driven by Bolts this season. He's got his hands full with one of the best racers we got on the circuit, Phoenix, driving Avenger. It'll be interesting to see how Critical Error does against Phoenix, who is in top form most races. As you see there, Avenger just driving on a rail. He has this track down. And Critical Error, unfortunately, looks like he is living up to his name as he has a critical error during the race, and he's not going to finish as Phoenix just packs it in. He doesn't want to damage the truck. Unfortunate start to the season for Critical Error, but we're happy to have him here in AODT. But for Phoenix and Avenger, to no one's surprise, moving on to the next round. Moving on to our next race, we got Bryce in an Escalade. Typically a freestyle, but he's going to race tonight because he kind of has to. And there's Chicken driving Gravedigger. He wasn't here last week. He's one of the guys who organizes the league, so I'm excited to see what he could do on the racetrack. He's a strong racer, a strong freestyler, and it suits him to be on Team Gravedigger. As this race gets started, as Gravedigger wastes no time getting around that berm, Bryce did not get out of the berm as fast as Chicken did in Gravedigger, as Chicken in Gravedigger is just ripping through this track. Goes a little wide, but it's not really going to make much of a difference as Bryce is having all sorts of trouble here on the track. And yep, that's going to be a pretty easy win for Chicken in Gravedigger. Excited to have Gravedigger on the Sunday Tour. We've had the Legend last week. Now we got both of them. As we take a look at our current points leader, Amos Moses, driving by Little Do, he's going to be taking on me. Now, Little's one of my dearest friends in AODT, but you know what? All that goes right out the window the second you line up against each other on the track. So let's see if I got enough to take out Little Do here. But last week in racing, Little Do really surprised everybody in Amos Moses and got to the semifinals where he ended up getting taken out by Engine 85. As both trucks are about even at the halfway point, who's going to pull this one out? Oh, I got a little wild there, and Little looks like he's going to take this one easily. Yep. This is why I need to go back to being on a steering wheel, folks. I gave it up so that I could run the show, so I race on a controller. I'm going back to steering wheel next week. You best believe that. But congratulations to Little Do moving on. He ran one hell of a race as we get a chance to look at Immortal Dom driving Immortal. And he'll be going up against Avenger, driven by Phoenix. So Immortal's going to have his hands full, even though he had a bye run. But let's see if he's got what it takes to take down the quickest guy in the league at the moment, and that is Phoenix in Avenger. And Immortal has all sorts of trouble on that berm, and I think that that is going to cost him big time because you cannot make any mistakes when you're racing Phoenix and Avenger. If you just look at how he rides, he is close to those cars, even though he throws the truck and damages the crap out of it. That's going to be an easy win for Avenger moving forward. When you're racing with Phoenix, you got to lock in. You cannot make a single mistake or else he'll make you pay for it, and he did there. As we get our first look at Electric Sins in Gravedigger the Legend. So we have new Gravedigger, and then we have old Gravedigger. Electric Sins won racing last week, so let's see if he could repeat tonight as he goes up against the Rod Ryan Show, who looked strong in the first round. And there's Gravedigger the Legend just making that berm so cleanly. As we get to the halfway point of the race, both trucks look pretty even. It's all going to come down to this final turn as Gravedigger the Legend turns on the nitrous and just burns his way through that second turn. And that's going to be it for Rod Ryan as Gravedigger the Legend puts him on the trailer. Electric Sins continuing where he left off last week in racing. Remember, he won last week. Let's see if he can do 2 times in a row as we go from one Gravedigger to another. But before we look at Gravedigger, let's take a look at Wolf's Head driven by Thomas. And there's Gravedigger driven by Chicken. Chicken looked so strong in his first round. Let's see if Wolfhead's got enough to take him out. An interesting little tidbit here. Both Wolfhead and Gravedigger are one of the few trucks that are running on both Saturday and Sunday with different drivers. As we get a look at this race here, Gravedigger in a bit of a lead at the halfway point. He loses a piece of his truck, but that doesn't seem to bother Chicken as he hits the car. But that's not going to be enough to slow him down from picking up the win, as Gravedigger, driven by Chicken, is going to be moving on his first week here, and he is looking super strong. Moving right along, we got Little Do and Amos Moses. He won the entire event last week, but I'll tell you what, he's got to have his hands full going up against Avenger, driven by Phoenix, who's been absolutely dominant on this track. But I'll tell you what, Little Do has been looking very strong the past week, so you don't get to the top of the points from not doing good. As both of them shoot out of that berm pretty strong, but Phoenix gets right into that turn, and he just left Little in his dust off that first turn. He is so strong. When you come out of that berm, it's weird. It's almost like it's one big turn that you got to make from the very start of the race all the way around the first turn. So Phoenix, again, just keeping up with what he's doing, and that's kicking butt and taking names, moving on to the next round. Now, I'll tell you what, I'm super excited for this next race as we got Gravedigger the Legend versus Gravedigger. It's new versus old. Who's your money on, folks? Both racers are incredibly strong. This could be anybody's race. But I promise you one thing, we can count on a Gravedigger winning this one. As both trucks look very strong out the gate, pretty even into the first turn. So we get to the halfway point. Chicken in the modern Gravedigger has a bit of a lead over the Legend. But here comes the Legend as Chicken gets a little wild over there. And that's going to be the Legend. Even if Chicken had crossed the line first, it looked like at the end here, if you look, he might have caught, he would have caught a 5-second penalty. So that would have cost him the race anyway. So Gravedigger the Legend moving on to the finals. 2 weeks in a row as you see the aftermath of the first race. Gravedigger doing his best to help out his old man. As we get ready for the final race of the night, this is what it's all come down to. Electric Sins in Gravedigger the Legend versus Avenger, driven by Phoenix, and a little bit of mind games taking place out there on the track. Gravedigger the Legend says, get out of here with that. Driven by Electric Sins, he'll be going up against, obviously, Phoenix and Avenger, who's just been so strong tonight. It's going to take everything Electric Sins has to take this guy down as we get this race started. Both trucks looking incredibly strong. At the halfway point, though, Avenger's got a bit of a lead. Can he hold it? Because remember, Gravedigger came back that last race. Can he do it again into the final stretch? And no, he's not going to have enough. Avenger ends up taking it. Phoenix picking up his first racing win of the season, and it comes in Grand Forks. You know what? This guy was saying all week that he hated this track, but I'll tell you what, the way that he drove it did not seem like he hated it. He seemed like he knew exactly what he was doing. Probably a little bit of mind games going on behind the scenes as he goes over to either rub it in Electric Sin's face or to just check on him and say, hey, buddy, good job racing. No, it looks like he's definitely going to be rubbing it in. And you know what? If I was that fast, I probably would too. But next week, I'm hoping to have a better showing than I did this week. I did get past the first round, even though it was on a penalty. As you see, Phoenix just celebrating, putting on a show for the folks. And who can blame them? It was a hard-fought racing win. So taking a look at the updated Sunday score points, we have in first place Gravedigger the Legend with 44 points. He's followed by Amos Moses, who's been bumped down to second. Moving up to third place after his big racing win, Avenger. He's followed by Rod Ryan Show. And then we have Immortal in fifth, Wolf's Head in sixth. I've managed to bump myself up to seventh in my old pal Bigfoot. I'm going to be looking to keep climbing those ranks. And then in eighth, we have an Escalade, followed by Axe, and then rounding out your top 10, Chillin' Villain, driven by Cryowolf with 26 points. So this is where things stand after 2 weeks. We're going to be off next week, but then we'll pick things up the week after that. So make sure that you guys tune in when we come back so that you don't miss any of the action. Because remember, if you've seen these trucks race this week, next week they'll be freestyling, and then we just switch it back and forth. For the All Out Destruction family, I am your host, E.G. Lately, saying make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you on the next one.